Hi guys, hope you are having a good day. So from this video, I'm hoping to create an Android application with you. The application that I'm going to create is the City Advisor. This is the layout of the application that I'm hoping to develop today. On top of this view, you can see there is a drop-down list. In Android, we call this a spinner. Inside of the spinner, we have all the provinces in Sri Lanka. It's 9 to be precise. So the user can select any item from the spinner and click on this button under the spinner, which has the name of this find cities, and generate the cities for the corresponding province. So this is the layout that I'm hoping to develop today. So let's now see what are the steps included in developing this application. So this diagram shows the hierarchy that I'm hoping to follow in order to develop the application. First, I create the layout, and then we are going to refer all the components in the layout to our main activity. And also I'm creating an external Java class here. So inside of this Java class, I'm going to write the logic that helps our application to figure out what cities are to be shown according to the selected province. So that is the job of this Java class. When the activity tells the selected province, I'm returning the corresponding cities to the activity from the Java class. And then my activity will update my layout with the generated details. So in this part 1 video, I'm hoping to create my layout and the activity and establish the communication between them. And in the next part of this video, we will create the external Java class and we will update the layout according to that. Okay, first, with all this information, I'm going to create a new Android application. So like in previous times, I'm creating an empty activity. So I'm giving the application name as City Advisor. So you can see my package name and also my save location. You can change your save location from this dialog. And I'm also going to keep the other configuration as it is and press the finish button. Now Android Studio will create my project. So this takes a bit of time actually. Okay, our project has been built now. Within few minutes, you can see our main activity and the XML file in the editor. Okay, here are these documents there. So I'm sure you're familiar with this layout. This is the by default layout with the hello world text. So let's just change this layout according to our application. Firstly, I'm going to delete all these components from this XML file. I'm going to use a relative layout in this application. So I'm going to delete everything. And when you type relative layout, it gets suggested for you actually from the Android. And after this, we have to give the width and the height for this layout. And that is a mandatory thing. Okay. If not, this layout tag is shown in red color as an error if we don't give the width and height things. So I'm going to give match parent for the width and height, because then only will this layout take the whole size of the screen. After creating this layout, I'm going to add my spinner into it. First of all, I'm going to add an ID to my spinner as I'm using it in my activity class. I need to refer this. When you type Android ID, this text is automatically suggested for you. Press enter here and then give the ID that you want. Okay, and I'm going to put spinner select as my ID. And then next thing I'm going to do is specify the width and the height. Well, that is also compulsory in these components. I'm going to add wrap content as this value. This will keep the dimensions of the component according to the text that I'm adding to it. As the name implies, it takes the space to just wrap the contents inside of it. When you see this in the layout, you can see the spinner is on the left upper corner of the screen with the 00 position. So that is where all the components are getting created from. But we want to change the place to the center area. So we're going to use a property called layout center horizontal. I'm making it true. By doing this, we can horizontally center our components. So you can see in the layout that to make this come a bit downward, we can further change these configurations. Okay, so we can also vertically center this, but I'm not going to do this because we will have some other components under this spinner. I'm just going to add a margin for this. So I'm adding margin layout margin top as 100 dp. So from the layout you can see that 100 dp has been added, and the spinner has slided it downwards a bit. Now the spinner is okay, but there's something to be added to it, but I'll do it later. Now we'll create our button. In here also we have to provide width and height as it's mandatory. I'm giving both as wrap content here, and I'm going to give an ID to this button. BTN Cities is the ID I'm giving. Then I'm going to give a text to this button, and this text is displayed in the layout when you see the button. But before that, I want to place my button below the spinner. For that, I'm using this property called layout below. In this page, Android asks us to enter under which element we are going to place this button. So here we have to enter the corresponding ID of that element, which is the spinner we added previously. Then this button will go under the spinner, as you can see in this layout. So you can see our spinner is there and the button has come on it. But the placements are not that perfect, so we need to align them vertically now. I'm going to give a layout align left here in the button with the spinner. So now you can see they're perfectly aligned with each other. And also I'm going to give margin top as a 30 dp. So now you can see that space has been added to the layout also. So let's add a text to this button. So as I told you earlier, we are not hard coding our string values in here. Remember to use the strings.xml file under the values folder and add the string values there, because localizing all of your strings in one place will come in handy one day when you want to change these values. It's just one of the best coding practices. So go to the strings.xml and all you have to do is copy and paste this existing string tag and modify it accordingly. I'm giving my string name as btn text and the value as find cities. And in the layout, I'm going to refer that string value like this. Okay, so in the design view, you can see now that text has been added to our button. Okay, now then below this button, we want our text view, which shows the cities for the selected province. So like in previous two elements, I'm going to mention the width and height here. Also I'm going to give wrap content. Not much parent, it should be wrap content. And also height is the same, wrap content. And now we have to mention where we are going to place this text view. That's under the button. So like in earlier, I'm adding layout below and give the ID of the button to place this under it. Okay, in the layout, actually when the design view, you can't see our text view yet as there's nothing inside of it. But it is added under the button element. But we can check where it is by adding some text to it. So for now, let me hard code some value to the text property and check. So you can see now there's our text view element. So I'm going to give some alignment for this text view with the button like we did in previous element. So I added a align left with the BTN Citizen. You can now see that it is perfectly aligned with the button view also. And also I'm going to give 30 dB of margin top here to get some space between the elements. Okay, in the design view now you can see everything is perfectly aligned. So let me just remove this hard-coded text now. We don't need it in this app. Actually, you're going to get this text from our external Java class, so that's okay now. Okay, now our view is pretty much completed, and there's one more thing to do, that is adding the provinces to our spinner. I told you earlier there is something I want to do with the spinner, so that's it. To do that, I'm navigating to my string.xml file, and I'm going to do a very small change here, that is adding an array. It's not hard at all. You have to copy some string tag, and when you type a hyphen here, Android automatically suggested Android dash array. So select it, and let's give a name to our array as provinces, like this. And then I'm going to give my array a name. Okay, so array name is given. So I'm going to add array items using item tags. So like this, you have to open item tag, put the value inside of it, and close the item tag. So to make this whole process much quicker, I've already typed to my provinces list. So let me just paste those values here. Okay, so now these are the provinces we are going to add, and we have to add this province list to our spinner also. So in the spinner, type Android entries, and Android will suggest the provinces array to you. So it is like this, array / provinces. Okay, so you have to select that and enter. Okay, even from the layout now, you can see that list is added because the topmost element has been automatically assigned with the spinner. Okay, so that's pretty much the basics for this app. So let's just run this now and see how it's shown in the emulator. I have explained how to create emulators in my previous videos. So if you haven't got a chance to watch, please give it a look. In that video, I have explained how to create and configure an emulator. I will provide the link to that video in the description section so you guys can easily find it. So now our emulator has started, and now you can see our app is about to get launched in our emulator. So okay, here's the app that we have developed. So you can see when I select on this spinner, all the provinces I have added are shown to me. And here's the button we added, and we haven't wrote any code for these elements yet. I just wanted to show you guys how the UI we came up with. So what I'm going to do in this app is when I select a province from the spinner, I click on the button and the related cities will get generated in the text view. So the UI is done, and now we have to implement a button click. So let's type Android on click in our button element. So you can give any name here. I'm giving on click BTN cities as my button click event name. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy that and I'm gonna go to my main activity class. Here you know that this onCreate method is called when you are running the main activity, and it's the first method that's going to get called, and we specify the corresponding layout from the setContentView method inside of it. And okay, with these details we are going to create our button click. So I'm going to use the public void and the name of the method, the name that we copied from our layout. So okay, this is the compulsory method format we need to have for our button click. Our method should be public with a return type of void, and then the method name must be the same as the one we gave in our XML file. Okay, that's that name. And also we are passing view object as the one and only parameter. So now you might think, why are we using a view object here? Because we are not going to use it inside of this method code. So I have a good explanation for that too. So this view actually refers to the view object that fires this method. So in our case, it's our button. Okay, so actually all these spinners, buttons and text views are derived from the view mother class. So don't worry, we'll talk about these things later in detail from the coming videos. For now, just know that this view object is there to refer to the button element. Okay, so don't stress too much about it for now, and with these details in mind, let's continue to work on our button click event. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to know what is the item that user has selected from the spinner. So because with that detail we are going to generate the city list. So for that, let's create this spinner object as selected province. I'm going to give this spinner object the name selected province, and with this method find view by ID, r.id spinner selector, the name that we have mentioned in our XML file. We can generate a view. So actually Android gets the resource in our layout which has this ID and get this view from the r.java class. So that's what happens from this method. So we have talked about this R class from our previous videos. R class is used to keep track of all the resources in our application. When we run or save our app, R class get updated with the added resources. So inside of this R class, we have this static inner class called ID, and that's why we can mention it in here without an object. So in this inner class, we have a static final int with a reference to our spinner element in this layout. So this is the reference. So this method returns a okay, so that is the reference for the spinner, and this method returns the corresponding view according to this ID. So since this method returns a view and we need a spinner here, we are going to cast it to a spin object. So that now we are getting a spinner object from that view, find view by ID with this casting thing. Okay, so similarly I'm going to create a text view object too. So I'm just going to keep typing the code as it's quite same with the above case. So I'm going to give the name display text and I'm going to cast the view generated from the find view by ID. So r.id and my text. Okay, I forgot to add an ID for the text view, so I'm going to add txt display as my ID. Okay, pardon me for the mistakes I'm doing here. Okay, so txt display is my ID. So okay, the scenario is quite similar to the previous one. So we're going to put dot text display. So our class has the static class named ID. Inside of this we have the static final reference to the txt display, which refers to this text view, and that resource is retrieved as a view object, and that view object is casted to a text view to assigned with the text view that we have created in our left hand side display text. And then I'm going to get the selected item from the spinner to a string value. So I'm going to create a string variable here. So we need to get this value to extract cities actually. So using normal Java language, I'm going to get the selected item from this spinner. So to do that, I'm going to copy the spinner object name and I'm going to use get selected item. So this is pure Java code. Okay, so and with this returned object, actually this returns an object, and with this object I'm going to get the string value using string dot value of. Okay, so okay, that's all for the data selection. Okay, so this is it for the first part of our video tutorial actually. Up to now all we have done is creating the layout and then referred to our layout resources from the activity main class. With these values we are going to assign generated cities from the external Java class to the text view. So yeah, and yeah, with the activity we are getting details from the external Java class to the activity and updating the layout. So that's all for this part of the tutorial. From our next video, let's see how to implement the Java class and update our layout according to the user selected promise details. So thanks guys for watching this. Let's meet in my next video. Stay tuned. Bye.